Joining me is Tamanna Inamdar. Tamanna, what does this actually mean, that the clarification has come in? Smart moves on the stocks as well.
So, Hira, let me just put it down very simply. This means that all of the reportage and all of the social media commentary, which was making this up to be a very large case personally aimed at the heads of these companies, seems to have been a mountain out of a molehill. Now, why do I say that? The statement today says that Adani directors are not charged under FCPA in this DOJ, that's Department of Justice, indictment. That means that there is no charge personally of corruption or bribery that has been levied in these allegations, mind you, by the Department of Justice against either Gautam Adani, Sagar Adani or Vneet Jaain. The charges have been brought upon are against the employees of Azure International and a Canadian investment fund. So, which is why the entire magnitude of what was perceived as a problem now gets reduced massively. In fact, let me first go across to my colleague Alex Matthews, who's explaining what exactly the statement says today.
So there's been quite a lot of speculation, there's been quite a lot of allegations that are being thrown around, and here I'm not just talking about what was said in the Justice Department indictment that came through. I'm talking about everything that came after that. The media reports that are claiming that Gautam Adani himself, along with Sagar Adani and Vneet Jaain, have been involved in bribery. Now, there was a clarification that was issued by Adani Green earlier today, in which there is a very clear statement of fact. In no situation under the indictment that was sent out by the DOJ has there been a naming of Gautam Adani, Sagar Adani or Vneet Jaain in a violation related to the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act or when it comes to obstruction of justice. Both of these aspects are criminal charges and would lead to quite significant repercussions. What they have been named in, and these are allegations I must point out, are civil charges, and those relate to alleged securities and wire fraud. Remember that there is a very significant, stark difference between a civil charge and a criminal charge. The criminal charge, in fact, is something that has very severe legal repercussions. Now, the understanding, of course, of that indictment has been flawed, as a result of which a lot of media channels or media outlets have gone ahead and cast aspersions on the group, and they've gone so far as to call it bribegate in certain cases, and that has been unfounded. There has been quite a big impact on the stocks, but investors today will probably be asking, was there much ado about nothing at all? Was there a mountain that was made of a molehill? Ultimately, legal experts have said that this is something that can be taken up over a period of time. The charges against Gautam Adani as well as Sagar Adani and Vneet Jaain are lighter compared with what has been levied against the Azure Energy employees and the CDPQ charges that were leveled by the US Justice Department. There has been a reaction in the stock markets today, and that is for everybody to see.
Right. In fact, let's listen in to former AGEL Senior Counsel Mukul Rohatgi and Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court Mahesh Jethmalani about the findings of the allegations against Adani Group in a USA court. Let's listen in.
See, madam, generally the charges seem to be that Adani company called Adani Green, which is in the business of supplying solar power, was bribing officials, unnamed officials of certain unnamed power companies, purchasers in India, and the idea was to get lucrative contracts for supply of power. इसके लिए bribe दी गई, किसको दी, कहाँ दी, कितनी दी, ये कुछ नहीं है इसमें अभी। और क्योंकि इसमें अमेरिकन इन्वेस्टर्स हैं, अमेरिका की स्टॉक एक्सचेंज में इसका शेयर लिस्टेड है, इसलिए वहाँ की इन्वेस्टिगेशन ये दिखाती है, ये इनके खिलाफ चार्ज है।
Right. What do the charges specifically, say at this point? What are the charges against Adani?
It is not specific at all. I told you, अगर मुझे आपको घूस देनी है और आप किसी कंपनी में हो तो मुझे आपका नाम तो देना पड़ेगा। तो ना तो आपका नाम है, ना उसमें पैसा इन्वॉल्व है, ना लिखा है कितना दिया और कौन सा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मिला, कुछ नहीं लिखा है, जनरल है। अब या तो जनरल है या उनके पास और इन्फॉर्मेशन है, वो बाद में दी जाएगी, वो मैं कह नहीं सकता। लेकिन इन कागजों में कोई घूस लेने का नाम, पता, अमाउंट कुछ नहीं है।
In which counts are the Adanis named and not named?
Counts 2, 3 and 4, the Adanis are named. Those counts relate to allegations of conspiracy in securities, namely shares which are listed in the US.
Right, and count 1 and 5, sir?
One and I told you 1 and 5. One is conspiracy to violate the Corruption Act, and count 5 is obstruction of justice.
Right, all right.
उन दोनों में नहीं है।
Right.
The US indictment does not at all suggest that there was any bribery in India by the Adani Group or its directors. There's no allegation about that. The allegation is that investors in the United States who subscribed to the bonds issued by Adani Green were misrepresented when in fact bribes were paid. Now, what they have suggested is not actually bribes were paid. So, if no bribes were paid, where is the question of anybody being induced on false representations to subscribe to these bonds? Because there is no offense alleged to have taken place in India. They say that there was a conspiracy to violate the Foreign Corruption Prevention Act, there, FC. But there is no evidence even for that. What is the evidence which points to that inference?
So also the Congress is, at this point forming a JPC and wants to discuss about this in the Parliament with the winter session begun already as well. What is your understanding of that with the opposition going on about this indictment?
The indictment itself cannot constitute evidence for any further action in India, including a JPC. The indictment does not provide evidence of any offense committed by anybody in India. Right. If you come with that evidence, then on a consideration of the probative value of that evidence, action may be taken. But at the moment, there is no evidence.
Okay, at the moment there is no evidence, says Mahesh Jethmalani. Let's get a deeper perspective. Abizar Divanji, founder of Neostrat Advisors, joining us on the show. Shrikant Srinivas, former senior journalist and policy consultant. With us today, Ashwini Dubey, advocate Supreme Court, and Vneet Jaain, head of research, Ventura Securities, who actually had the stock call this morning, also joining us. And I must say, if anyone listened to Vneet Jaain this morning on NDTV Profit, he had the absolutely right call on the investment on Adani stocks. Having said that, let me start off the conversation with Abizar. Abizar, just put this into perspective. And let's put the stock reaction to one side, just seeing it legally and for what the story is now. Why has this statement made a difference?
One, clearly there is first of all, there is for the first time a very clear statement coming out from the company saying that our officials are not involved. And I think that was a very, very big and bold statement, presumably, backing off or kind of challenging the authorities, including our regulatory authorities who would have written to him, to say that there is nobody involved from the company. So I think that positive statement in itself would give a lot of confidence to people at large that there is backing to it. The other important thing is that what's emerging out from all the legal expert opinions coming about is that there is so much of a loophole in statements that everywhere there seems to be some escape route that the US courts have seemed to have put in. To say that, I can get out of here, I can get out of there, by not naming specific officials in point count 1 and count 5, which are the two important counts. Every other count is basically a disclosure count, which can be easily supported if count 1 and count 5 are proven wrong. So at the end of the day, it now seems to appear that the initial euphoria created by a filing seems to have died down. One, because of the company coming out clearly. And secondly, people actually reading through the lines and saying, oh, there are so many other things here. Now, the other important thing that the company's statements come out with is the implications. And I'd like to spend 2 minutes on this implication bit. The knee-jerk reaction, not only from the markets, but from counterparties, from other people doing business with them, etc., the implications are so large. So it's so easy for somebody to say, oh, I level a charge. But the implications of levying of that charge are supply of capital, our partnerships, our raising of finances in international markets. All of this has a contagion effect, which will take longer to go than simply a statement coming through. But the positivity is that, yes, with the statements coming through, we now believe that there is a path to recovery.
Implications, I think, is important. Path to recovery is an important point, but then we also have to understand the context of why this is happening. And let me come to Shrikant Srinivas on this, because frankly, we live in polarized times, Shrikant, and everyone will have a strong opinion one way or the other on this issue, and as with everything in the public domain right now. But forget about the opinion. Let's talk about the facts here. And what really is coming through? Then the question becomes about why was this one narrative propped?
I don't know whether we can speak about why. I mean, I'm not going to speak to the motivations of this. The process typically works through, Mr. Devanji and others are probably better acquainted with this, but the point is that a federal grand jury empaneled by a particular, based on a complaint by the SEC, which is a statutory authority, investigated and appeared to have found enough, a grand jury found that there was enough evidence to bring that indictment. That is why we are here. As speaking as a journalist, I don't think there is any grand conspiracy at play here, at least not against a specific. I don't see it overtly coming from anybody. I don't see the US government or Department of Justice being, focused on presenting or chasing down any particular defendant for any political purpose here. I don't see that.
Shrikant?
Yes.
Yes, go on.
No, I said there has been a lot of information about what has been happening. As you're all aware, that as we are all aware, there has been a certain amount of media, a significant amount of media coverage, I must say, definitely in this country, in our country, about various reports provided by the Hindenburg and others. Based on that, there has been some action. Based on that, based on a complaint by the SEC, the Justice Department has pursued, and based on the grand jury indictment, the grand jury testimony, etc., and the grand jury found there's been enough. Now, let's be clear that the grand jury indictment is not evidence, as has been pointed out before. It is a set of allegations, and even the SEC in its statement clearly says that these are allegations and our allegations are until proven. That
Right.
it has said.
Right.
It basically says that the parties are treated as innocent until proven guilty.
Absolutely, Shrikant. These are just allegations, and that is what is important in what has come out. Ashwini, let me come to you on this. Clearly, a couple of things that we have noted over here is that bribery and corruption is not involved. Obstruction of justice is not involved. So your serious indictments are not involved at all. For the benefit of the viewers, what is it that you're looking at in terms of the lesser critical charges now? How would this impact? What's the process to contest this in the US? And what are the kind of monetary penalties that would be involved, according to you?
First, let us understand the jurisprudence of bribery. Jurisprudence of bribery is that there has to be specific allegations. A, giver. B, taker, the person who has to accept it. 3, for what favor? Here in this indictment, if you see, those 3 important ingredients are missing. Now 2, suppose if US prosecutors have filed a case, in that case, if there is any specific averment with respect to the role played by Mr. Adani or his nephew or his Vneet Jaain, that is completely missing. Now 3, if you see, in the indictment filed by the US prosecutors, the name for the work and for how much amount and when it was delivered, it is missing. So it is just an allegations. Prima facie does not substantiate it by any concrete evidence or any data. So if we see the allegations, then it is the courts are now coming to the courts procedure, how courts function. If allegations are labeled, then against that reply is to be filed. This is the universal law, and the principle of natural justice also says. So you cannot just pick allegations part, what the Indian media and world media has picked up, which in earlier also days with the clearly agenda-driven exercise, either in Hindenburg or in the past you have seen, this selectively they were exercising their discretion of freedom of speech and expression as given in the constitution in order to stop the economic growth of the country. You see, you must not forget that India is becoming the very, very fast growing economy of the country. So of course, those who does not want to see the India in the race, they will target from one to the other. And past also we have seen. Now those people who are targeting it, they must see that there is no allegation qua the bribery charges, the allegations does not substantiated by any evidence. So it's afterthought. And let's reply also has to be seen. Reply has clearly come, and no law is the judgment is passed only on the basis of the allegations. And these are allegations only as of now. Nothing has come forward. So it is to be replied in legally. And I think those Indian houses or the agenda-driven people who are exercising it for their benefits at the behest of some foreign companies, they should also be taken to the task. Legal action should also be taken against them. Over to you.
What kind of legal action? I mean, you made an important point, Ashwini Dubey, and I'm going to come to Vneet on this at the end of the day because he called out the rally we'll see today. But whenever this happens and whatever the motivations are, you say, for example, that there could be malicious intent and there should be legal action. What kind of legal action would you take here?
Your question to you, me.
Yes,
Tamanna. See, these are the words, those who are knowingly, deliberately maligning the image of an Indian businessman by exercising their journalistic freedom, by glorifying the offense, which is not substantiated by any evidence. You can file a defamation case against them. You can take it to the task. You can file the allegations against them. Look, you have to see that there is no allegation against me. See, the ingredients of the bribery is missing. See, the jurisprudence, criminal jurisprudence, which says that the bribery is specific allegations, a specific project or a specific favor is to be taken, and giver and taker both, then these are missing. So it's an allegation. On the basis of allegation, you cannot ruin the image of any business house or anyone, individual also. This is a law.
Absolutely, this is the law. In fact, as Tamanna was saying, Vneet did call out this action in terms of where Adani Group of companies go. Vneet, we've already seen that rally that has come in today's session on the group companies. Where from here and what would you advise?
So, if you see purely on a short-term basis, it has been my observations over the past few years that whenever you have a sudden event which gets negated, like, this news flow that came in, prices tend to recover back the entire erosion that has happened or correct on the either side. So if we were to follow this same premise, I think the valuation collapse that we have seen from around 2,800 levels could gradually creep up to those levels.
Vneet, you called it this morning when you said that we're seeing a rally, and we've seen a pullback in the stocks as well. What will be sort of the outlook from here? What are the factors that you would watch purely from an investment purpose on Adani stocks?
So number one, this is going to be an overhang on the stock, okay? Because although there has been some very sound counter points made by the guests on your show, it still remains that there is a case that is filed against the group. So there will be a little bit of overhang on the stock. Having said that, if you were to look at the fundamentals, most of these stocks are trading at 50% of their intrinsic value for the next 1.5 years, FY27. Now, given this kind of a value gap, especially in large cap stocks, Nifty 50, Nifty 200, you'll not get such opportunities, elsewhere. So given these facts, I think that, investments made in these stocks at current levels will probably, or, hopefully mean that investors will be very well rewarded in the short to medium term.
View from a short to medium term. Abhi sir, let me come to you with regards to these kind of proceedings with the SEC as well. What are the usual timelines and how soon do you think will they come to a conclusion on things like these?
I think the sooner they agree to a fine settlement, the sooner will be the settlement. That's what's happened in most cases as far as corporate related allegations are concerned in the US. So I guess, 6 months to a year is what they would take to settle it, because there will be some levels of hearing and then there will be a settlement fine. And those fines will, I think the corporate India or corporate anybody normally pays those fines in simply because they want to avoid, as Vneet just said, the overhang on their system. So normally what happens is, without admitting to guilt, these things are settled with a fine. And I think that's what will happen here in all likelihood, because business needs to move on. Unfortunately, in jurisdiction like this, I think we are faced with this issue. While globally it is like, innocent until proven guilty. Here it is guilty until proven even innocent. So the sooner you get yourself proven innocent, it's better for your business going forward. And that's what normally business people do.
So that's the legal route. But just one more point I wanted to understand from you, Abizar, is that and if you look at the GQG note, the client note which spoke about this, they talk about the changes which will take place when the Trump administration comes in. This has also been a case brought in by the district attorney through the Department of Justice. Explain that puzzle to us, for those of our viewers who are not very well versed with how the American legal system at this level plays in or ties in with American politics.
Well, I'm not an expert on US judicial system, but from whatever I've read, I can tell you. One is that if there is an indictment, I do not think the president of any country has an overreaching power to remove the indictment suo motu. However, I think what can happen is the district attorney can be asked to reach a judgment quicker, reach a settlement quicker. And I think that is what will happen, given that generally Trump is supposed to be a pro-business oriented individual, maybe less of vendetta politics. And that may happen and that may play out, that they would go for a settlement quicker and move on. That's what I think is likely to be the implication.
So, okay, perhaps the end game here is settlement. Today, I think some clarity has come into the nature of these allegations, which is the kind of impact you're seeing on the stock, etc. But thank you so much to all of you for joining us on this special show at this point on the big story of the day. That's all the time we have for now, but do stay tuned to the NDTV network for a lot more coming up on the other side.
Important initiative